I think we'd all agree that the wrong diagnosis or a misdiagnosis could be fatal in our personal lives. A little bit extreme, but stay with me on this. And or you get the misdiagnosis. Well, anytime there's a diagnosis, there is a prescription. And naturally, if you've got a misdiagnosis, or the wrong one, hey, you're fine, and someone's not fine, nothing's done. This is wrong, and that's not what's wrong, but you're prescribed what to do for that thing that's not the thing. There's a problem. Well, let me take you into your business. It's John Cheplak on a Sunday morning at, looking around here, 6:33 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Just getting ready, my driver to get here about 7 a.m. and fly back to Louisiana. And I want to help with team leaders, broker owner managers, constantly in supporting you. And really, quite frankly, this message is for anyone in business and in life. But let's just talk about business. There are a few conversations that I've had recently, and I have them a lot. And this thought comes to my mind is that, we've got to diagnose, prescribe. It's really, if you take a look at the coaching business, people have different scenarios or different perspectives on it. I don't know. I think coaching is not all about cheerleading and motivation, holding someone accountable. I think true coaching, maybe it's consulting in the context of how I look at it, is having that competency and capability to take a look at something and ask questions and find out what the true issue is. And then when you get the answers, go a little bit deeper when you thought you had the real answer, but you didn't, and you got underneath it so that you can identify what the prescription is going to be. Here's a scenario. Having a conversation with a chief operating officer, a large organization. I think humbly all know that my average client does at least 500 million plus a year. Probably a higher average, but irrelevant. I just want to make a point of the level of businesses that I'm talking about here. And the conversation is talking about where production's at versus where they want it to be, where expenses are at versus where they want to be, some choices they need to make with staff, unfortunately, and maybe even looking at training. Because ultimately, the production and profitability is not on the path that the organization wants it to be. So I'm listening, great. Now, here's the key, 2 parts for any of you that are working with a coach, and I say this respectfully, anyone that is a coach, hey, there's all kinds of coaches out there in the world that are better than me, and there's probably some coaches that can hear this that hopefully I can lend this to as some value. There are many that went before me that helped me out. The critical piece is, as a coach, is not try to validate yourself and validate the investment that someone has made in you by giving them an answer. No, I think that your greatest skill set and greatest counsel can be in the questions and the depth of the questions so you can actually get to the truth. The path is the relentless pursuit of the truth. Too many business owners, too many team leaders, too many broker owner managers. What's happening is I jump in and I'll see the challenges or frustrations they have. I can go backwards and I can find where there was a misdiagnosis, like the wrong diagnosis. Hence, when you get a misdiagnosis, you're going to get the wrong prescription, the wrong action steps. And we get to fix that. I want to take you back to the scenario. So production's not where we want it to be, and maybe we need to look at training. Maybe standards need to be raised up. Maybe the people need to do more, and gosh, we've got to cut staff and cut expenses. Okay, cool. So what has your per person productivity typically been? 12, 13, 14-ish? Oh, really, really good. Great. So I stopped right there, and here's what I said. And listen, if your desire, by the way, is, well, that's what I am and that's what I want to be, and I don't care what the average is, hey, good for you. But you better make sure that the activities that support your capability to hold a number like that of per person productivity is congruent with what the market requires today. See, that's the difference maker. We're different. Great. If you're going to be different, then there's some other pieces that I'm going to touch on in a moment that you better be doing. Okay. Because here's the point that I made. So wait a minute. Production's not where we want it to be, and revenues aren't where we want it to be. So we want to change these things. But yet your per person productivity, if you look across North America, Team leaders throughout North America, they're hoping to get somewhere from 8 to 10 per person productivity. And I'm talking higher volume organizations. Again, keep in mind, I'm looking at 500 million as an average sales volume of my audience. Typically, here's what I'd say. It's really simple. Is smaller you are, the higher the per person productivity is. If you can look over time, what happens is there's more agents and you grow, per person productivity naturally takes a hit. So I said, well, wait a minute, our per person productivity, so the true measurement of productivity, and I'm not getting into that's true measurement of productivity. I'm not talking about true measurement of profitability, because then we get into cost of goods sold and what kind of commission splits the agents are on and scenarios like that. There's so many rabbit holes. I'm not trying to leave them out. I'm just trying to make a point right here of the misdiagnosis. The misdiagnosis. So our per person productivity is great. Now watch this. If we want to up the standards on our current agents and our per person productivity is above the rest, almost throughout North America, what do we risk? Here's what we risk. We risk pushing people away. We risk pushing people, it's just the way I'm. Knock yourself out. I've been in this game long enough to know. You can't make someone do more. You can do anything you want, but I'm going to tell you something. What's going to happen? You have massive attrition, okay? You're going to have people feel that they don't fit in. When you've hit a level where, okay, you know what? I feel really good about my per person productivity. Guess what you've proven? Here's what you've proven. You've proven that you're a pretty doggone good leader. You've proven to have good per person productivity. You've got a good retention, okay? You've probably got pretty good onboarding, good training and accountability. Leave it alone. Or leave it sit there for a moment until you ask the final question. Well, let me ask you this. How was recruiting? And there was the diagnosis. Recruited half as many agents as they needed to recruit over the last 12 months. And we did a little bit of math on what 30 more 2.5 recruits of a large organization a month. What would 2.5 recruits, more recruits a month do for Bob? Oh my gosh, we wouldn't have all those problems. Okay, great. So you don't have all those problems. Get it? They are a product of the problem. Let's go a little bit deeper. What is the activity that is taking place right now? We looked at outbound call volume and appointments. There it was. So think about this. First of all, for you as a team leader, I think philosophically, team leader, broker owner, here's what you need to get. Be really cautious. And I'm not talking about, analysis to paralysis. I figured this out in about 7 minutes of a coaching call. That's all it takes. A good coach should be able to determine what the problem is in the first 5 minutes, really. So maybe I'm a bad coach if it took me 7 minutes. Okay. I was able to find this. But think about this. But think about if they started pressing the agents for more activity. Probably could have pressed them right at the door. Made them feel they don't fit in. When they've already established a baseline of per person productivity, it's above all else. What if they change their training around because we want to tweak the training or how we coach the agents up, or our lead rotation or whatever, because we think this will squeeze more deals out of it. It's such a mistake. Leave the things alone that are working. Until you find out what really is not working and what's contributing to revenues not being where you want them to be, and having to maybe reduce staff and ask more of existing staff, maybe having to reduce other expenses, maybe like your marketing, which, you want to continue on with a responsible marketing expense. So here's what it came back down to though. 30 more recruits would have blown the doors off the organization. The good news is this leader, and this isn't about vesting coaching. If you do, great. If you don't, that's fine. Okay. But here's the thing. But I do want to give you just some really good, solid business advice. First of all, this. I hope you captured the lesson here. Misdiagnosis, okay, is going to create a condition where what you prescribe will be wrong and things will get worse. Things will get worse. That's simple math. So take the time and ask all the questions and have all of your information. Be willing to look at everything before you diagnose what the challenge is. Now, here's the scenario though. Make sure that, if you have a coach or a voice of reason or, just someone on your staff, make sure that they're competent in that area. Make sure that they've run the play before. I mean, listen, it's kind of hard as you're analyzing a business and you're going through all these different scenarios and you haven't run the play. You haven't run the play. You don't know the unintended consequences. Okay, you're not able to determine, okay, you got this problem, that problem, that problem. Oh, it's really not that problem. It's this situation right here. See, there's symptoms and then there's diseases, okay? And so many people mistake the symptom for the disease. Stop mistaking the symptom for the disease. Make sure that you've got, if it's a coach or someone on your staff or, a peer that can cause you to look deeper and ask the right questions so that you make the right decision. Now, here's the beautiful thing. This is a great organization, great staff, great systems, processes, marketing. We found the one scenario. And the one scenario we got to go back and visit is, there was a gap in the recruiting activity. Just was. And so now we can focus on that. I've got another organization I was working with too. And, okay, well, what are we going to do next? And this is going off the diagnosis and prescribe. Early in the year, what should we do next? What's the one thing I should be doing next? I says, that's the worst question in most cases. Well, why is that? Because the first question, worst question, first question. The first question goes like this. What silo of the business is not operating at 80%? Why 80%? Should be 100%. Because you're a leader and leaders are unreasonable. And no one's going to ever do it the level you expect, the level you can, or the level you want to. Pick one of the three, whichever one it may be. Okay, let's just keep it real. I've got it, transaction coordinator. And by the way, this was about a year ago right now. So what should I do? Go all in. And we're talking about an organization with well over 1,000 and thousands of transactions. Well over 1,000, I'll just say that. This is a different organization. The first one where I said, hey, we asked all these questions. They thought I had all these problems. We need to cut staff. We need this, we need that. No, you needed to recruit more. But it was proven. And actually didn't recruit more. You needed to do more activities. It was in the process. You can say recruit more. Okay, good. Okay, what are we currently doing? We're doing this. We're not doing enough of that. So that's really it wasn't recruit more. We're going to dial more. Just simple stuff. This one here, it was we need to go all in. So what do? You go all in on the transaction coordination part of the organization because you want your agents to actually have smooth transactions so they close, so they have a good experience, so that they talk about it. It's one of those things that, hey, we all want to get paid. Okay, transaction coordination is part of it. We want to make sure we don't have fallouts. We want to make sure our agents feel good in the experience and the services that we provide for them. Okay, great. Went all in out. No, it was maybe 30 days of that. Boom, got it dialed in. Let me tell you something. That organization doubled. They stayed on the same path they were on, okay? They doubled their units sold that year. Now, is that the one thing? Well, I'm going to tell you what, that was the one thing that wasn't at 80%. So you think about this. They were recruiting on a huge rip, okay? Huge recruiting rip. Well, what happens if they kept recruiting on a huge rip and transaction coordination was imploding right underneath them? Okay? Let me come back to the diagnose and prescribe, another scenario. And I think you should always be analyzing every single person that works with you, for you. I call it beside you. And that scenario is one where we're looking at an employee or a staff member. Am I getting the ROI on that employee? Okay. And there's a lot of scenarios. First and foremost is, are they a good person? Do they bring, value to the community, positive attitude, things like that? Just the basic things that we kind of expect of human beings. Okay, good. We're good there. Here's the mistake people make too much is, what's my ROI on them? Well, that's important, okay? But if you're going to measure ROI, you better have the whole picture. Let's talk about recruiting. Let's come back to that one. And the leader was taking a look at, okay, great, what should I compensate someone for recruiting? And there was a number, okay, I'm going to compensate them X. Oh my gosh, but, based on historical data and what's happened, I think I need to reevaluate that because I'm not getting that ROI. You're not? Oh, okay. We get Y in retained company dollar for an agent in their first year. I said, well, agents only stay with you for a year? Oh. Do you know how long they stay with you? What is the average retained company dollar of a recruit in year one? What's the average retained company dollar for a recruit that stays with you 2 years? What is the average retained company dollar for a recruit that stays with you 3 years? And I said, I don't even need to know, but when you come back to me, I know that you're probably going to be just fine. But here's the piece I want you to get. You've got to have the whole picture. And I know it may sound basic to you, but I think it's really simple. Listen, you recruit them once, and that human resource that brought the person in that gets compensated for however you pay them, okay, they get to move on and bring on another recruit. Well, in the meantime, that recruit they brought in could bring in revenue for year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. Find out what that number is. And the ROI makes sense, okay? Because what could happen is the wrong diagnosis, and then the prescription could be, oh my goodness sakes, that maybe this person isn't working out. There's the first one. Who wants to keep someone on for a sustained period of time that is in a revenue producing role? Recruiting is a revenue producing role, okay? And you're not getting a return on that. It's like dollar for dollar. That doesn't make sense. I don't hire people for dollar return. Okay, but you've got to have the whole picture. Well, imagine that. Gosh, actually, someone could have gone out the door, and I've watched people do this one. Let someone go, and why'd you let them go? Well, they weren't giving us enough of this, or they weren't delivering enough of that. I said, okay, well, who did the measurement? See, that's the thing where you've got to have a coach that has actually done what you're doing or trying to do. I'm telling you, now more than ever, you better have a sophisticated coach, consultant, voice of reason, someone that understands business. Because here's the scenario. Well, I'm not getting the return on the investment I'm making on this staff member, whether it's a recruiter, whether it's an ISA, whatever it may be. Okay, I'm not getting the return on that. It makes no sense. You let someone go, and they're actually someone that's better, much better than who you would bring in, and then finally you wake up and go, oh wow, I didn't look at the whole scenario. Let's go to another one. Let's talk about Zillow. Zillow's always fun to talk about. Zillow's terrible. That split's terrible. What if I told you take Zillow or I don't care what lead source, and they chopped it down even more? What if they came for you? Now, we've got Easy Home Search, which we sell exclusive county lead flow. No one else can buy that county once you have it. And there's all kinds of players in the game. So I don't worry about competition. I've got my product. We believe in our product. We've got great people. We do it totally different. If I was out there operating, would I do Zillow? Of course I would. And I don't care what the fee is. What are you talking about? Well, the first part is, I've got to certainly find a group of agents because I've done it. Let me tell you something. Back in 1997, 96, I had the USAA Movers Advantage program. We paid a 50% referral fee off the top and then 50% split to the agents. You need to do the math? And I had agents crushing it. How come? So here's the thing. This is another part of good business. See, bad leadership makes Zillow a problem. Bad leadership makes Zillow a problem. Good leadership makes Zillow or I don't care what they charge you, as long as it's not more, and I'm being a little bit extreme, but I need you to get this point. As long as it's not more than what I can get as a return. John, you're talking dollar for dollar. Yeah, because you think small. See, everyone's so lead dependent. What am I making off the lead? It's not about the lead. How many of you can tell me before you've either dropped Zillow or complained about Zillow or seen it's a cost? How many of you have done the math on how many transactions you've done because of that Zillow listing, Zillow buyer, that new sphere of influence, that transaction put your organization, your agent into that they never would have been into? Well, you probably can't, because here's the problem. It's not I don't care what lead portal you use. We can argue that. That's a whole different argument. But let's get into the argument of you as a leader. So you are generating and you are training your agents how to generate 2 transactions within 18 months of every closing from the recent closing they had. And I don't care if it's from Realtor.com, Easy Home Search, Zillow. See, now, why don't you do the math on that? Why don't you do the math on that? Well, you can't, because A, you don't have a program in place to that. B, you've created and fostered a condition where everyone is dependent. They're dependent on the Zillow, the next Zillow lead. That's purely what your relationship is. And guess what? That's not a relationship. See, that's transactional versus relational. That's independent. That agent is independent. The only thing they're connected to is what's important to them and what you're going to give them next. And they're dependent on you. Well, how about this one? Okay. How about an interdependence? I'm going to give you something that's an opportunity. Okay, great. Is the margin or the split the one you want, agent? But let me ask you this, agent. Our average sale price is $400,000, $450,000 at our team. See, here's the thing with our training and our coaching and your commitment to being a professional real estate agent, okay? We expect you to go out and generate. I'm putting you into a new sphere of influence, a new neighborhood, a new work environment that these people, these buyers or sellers are in, that it's your responsibility to then use to build a deeper relationship, train them to send you business, and train them to do business with you again. Yep, but here's the problem. Either most don't know, or if they do know, it's terrible, how many pieces of business they generate off from one piece of business in the next 18 months. I know. I did it as a branch manager, did it as an executive, because we taught our agents that. See, here's the question I always ask agents. So ready? Like misdiagnosis. Oh, you're looking so narrow-minded, okay? The game is long. It's not short. You're so narrow-minded. Well, oh my gosh, they charge us this fee, or those leads are too much, or those leads are too much. No, what you just said is you do nothing with the new relationship that you were provided that is a bottom of funnel lead, and continue to generate more business from them and multiply. Because here's the question I always ask people. See, I'm going to be a terrible leader if you have to work 2 years from today as hard as you're working today to make the same amount of money. And this is why your agents leave you. Because they do. Because they're dependent on the Zillow leads. They're not working that sphere of influence of each closing they have from Zillow, where they can probably go generate another lead from that one closing where they actually get a better split. And then they start seeing the math and saying, this is great for every one Zillow lead. It's kind of like a marketing expense. But I get also that momentum and consistency of a transaction. You can't put a price on that. Everyone's had slumps in sales. So I've got some consistency. I've got some bucks that come in. I'm getting into another sphere of influence. Let's do some math. An agent closes 10 Zillow leads in a year. And this is not me defending Zillow. This is me pointing out the holes in your leadership and the holes in your way you analyze your business and misdiagnose and make poor decisions, and why you don't grow. Great. You're going to close 10 of those terrible Zillow leads. They're great. They close. But they're bad because guess what? How much I make isn't big. Well, see, you're thinking only about your now money. It's that money that comes later. See, if you follow a system and process where you train people to send you business like a good business person should, okay? You should generate 20 more pieces of business off of these 10 over the next 18 months. That maths. Oh, but wait a minute. Then those 20 more that you sell off from these 10, you should be able to generate 2 more pieces of business off them over the next 18 months if you train people to do business with you and send you business. Well, my math tells me that 20 turns into 40. Like, this game is so easy. But you want to know what? Here's the problem. First of all, it's playing the short game, misdiagnosis, and even with the right diagnosis of, oh, great, there's an opportunity here if we work this sphere of influence to generate more business. No one's coaching, training, and leading to it. So just some different scenarios as you take a look at analyzing your business. I think people live too surface. They don't see the whole picture. And I can understand why, because there's a lot of people out there that are either not willing to seek competent counsel. Unfortunately, they're getting incompetent counsel. Or remember this, diagnosis, right diagnosis, and right prescription. If you're not where you want to be, there's probably a misdiagnosis. Talk to someone and get the right diagnosis. You get the right prescription, you can win. Have a good day.